back to the Heal with God podcast. Each week we explore a new theme for healing. I'm your host, Heather O'Brien, and today we're going to be talking about hearing God's voice in marriage, especially when the question you're asking is he the problem? So if you've ever prayed for your marriage but you still feel confused, if disappointment keeps surfacing no matter how many times you forgive, if you're torn between blaming yourself and blaming your spouse, this episode is not about fixing your husband. It's about hearing God clearly before you assign blame so that healing can actually begin. Hey there, welcome to Heal with God. I'm Heather O'Brien, your prophetic healing coach. This is your place where we go deeper into hearing God's voice and finding your healing through Jesus. If you're a Christian who's prayed all the prayers but you still feel stuck and you're ready for breakthrough, you're in the right place. Let's dive in because healing with God is possible for you too. Still can't hear God clearly? Feeling stuck, anxious, or spiritually dry, even after all the prayers, therapy, or even deliverance sessions? I get it. I've been there. That's why I host the free prophetic healing workshop every third Monday of the month. In this 60-minute session, we tackle the real root of what's been blocking you. You'll go through my 3-step spirit-led process to hear God for yourself, break agreement with lies, and let Him show you what to release so peace can finally take over. If you're tired of spiritual hype without real change, this is for you. I want you to go sign up now at heatherobrien.net/workshop. That's heatherobrien.net/workshop. And if you sign up early, you might even get live coaching and prayer. Okay, so backstory, I've been married for 23 years. And so when I talk about disappointment in marriage, I'm not speaking from theory. I'm speaking from experience. I'm not saying my marriage is all bad or anything like that. I'm saying I have experience. I have years of history, and I understand what you're saying. I do. And yes, there's plenty of moments where I could have legitimately pointed fingers. Moments where I felt hurt, unseen, misunderstood, let down, whatever words you want to use. I have felt all of that. But over time, God would keep interrupting my prayers. He would readdress them, and not to excuse anything, not to dismiss the pain, but to lovingly ask me to examine myself before shifting blame. And now I know, like when I do quiet one-on-one sessions, I'm usually saying, listen, I don't want to excuse the pain. I don't want to excuse his behavior, but I'm talking to you right now. So how can we work on you? Because you're the one that is on this call. You're the one who's listening to this podcast. You're the one that is hearing my voice. You're the one who can change you, is what I'm saying. You're the one who can change you. You might not can change your husband, but you can change you. And that is so powerful. I want to remind you what Jesus says. He says before we point out the speck in someone else's eye, that we're invited to deal with the log that's in our own eye. It's a loving invitation, isn't it? And it's a moment of humility, right? That's often where hearing God becomes really clear again, when we can hear Him for ourselves instead of trying to hear Him and be everyone else's prophet. We need to be a prophet to our own self. So today I want to give you 3 points on how to hear God's voice and heal those areas where you think it's really Him. And I'm not saying it's not. He might be a huge problem. You might be sinning. He might be full of the devil. I don't know what it is. But I want to teach you how to look inward, how to inspect your own self with God at the center, with God leading the whole way, okay? So point A, disappointment distorts your hearing. Disappointment is not just an emotion. It's actually an expectation that didn't get met. So in marriage, disappointment often forms when something didn't happen the way that you thought it would, when timing didn't unfold in the way that you expected or hoped, or your picture of this should be better by now, it quietly took root in your heart. Are any of those things hitting home with you? When disappointment is not just an emotion, but it's an expectation that didn't get met, it becomes unprocessed disappointment, and it creates this internal noise, and it gets loud. Am I right? It gets loud. It gets to where it's really hard to tune out. It's all you see. all you see is the negative. All you see is the things that didn't happen and the things that are going wrong. And when disappointment is not grieved, oh honey, silent judgments slip in. Resentment, bitterness, spiritual frustration, all of those things are present. Because if you don't grieve the disappointment, you can't be comforted. And therefore, you're never comforted. You're just always frustrated and irritated. And it's basically like having a log in your eye. Imagine that irritation. You know when you have something in your eye and it's just like, it just won't stop? It's that constant irritation, like, when can I get this eyelash out or whatever it is? And you might be praying, but are you listening through hurt? Is that eyelash in your eye and you really can't hear because you're so disappointed, you're so hurt, you're so bitter, you're so resentful? Is that possible? Because you're not going to get the discernment that you're looking for. So I want you to ask God a question for me, maybe a couple. Maybe you can ask him, what expectation am I grieving right now? Did something hit home right then? What about, what did I assume marriage would look like here? And I'm not saying that your expectations and your hopes and your desires are wrong, but I'm saying they are hopes, desires, expectations. They are fantasy. And sometimes we just need to kind of point that out. I'm not trying to be mean here. I'm just trying to say, if we fantasize, according to what should the marriage look like this? According to things on TV? According to another marriage you've seen, which you've never seen the whole picture of? According to what does marriage look like this? Because, I mean, until you've lived it, you have no idea what marriage should look like. You're only going by what you assume. You're only going by pictures and ideas and fantasies that have been given to you. And maybe you've experienced in your home, maybe your parents gave you a really great experience of what marriage looks like, but that's their marriage. Can I just be real with you for a minute? That's their marriage. That's a marriage between those two people. And I don't know that every marriage looks the same. I don't think any two people are alike, right? Let alone a marriage looking alike. Okay, so point A was disappointment distorts your hearing. So you want to hear God's voice? Then you have to deal with the disappointment. Quit suppressing it, grieve it, and then address it. So point B is blame blocks your discernment. Blame feels productive. It feels so productive. But spiritually, it's often a shortcut. It's saying, is he the problem? He's the problem. And when we say that, when we ask, is he the problem too quickly? What we're doing is we're bypassing discernment. We're jumping straight to conclusions. And Jesus clearly teaches us to get the log out of our own eye first. And if we don't do that, there's really no room for us to point blame. In fact, when we do that, it's highly unlikely that you will point blame. Whenever you see that you have a log in your own eye, you become a little bit more humble, if I'm honest. You realize, oh, I had plenty of flaws myself. No wonder they have flaws too. I mean, it is human, and we're not giving permission for it, but we become a more understanding human, more compassionate. Jesus wants us to do this. He wants us to become more compassionate, and that's why he's like, deal with yourself. And you're so powerful. I just want to point that out. You're so powerful. You have so much power to heal yourself with God. But you have zero power to heal others unless they want it, unless they're coming to you and asking you for it. And are they? If they are, great. And if not, it's not your job. It is your job to pray. But here's the thing. Whenever you fix yourself and you worry about the log in your own eye, it's not because the other person's perfect, but it's because unexamined hearts are going to distort your spiritual vision. And that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about hearing God's voice. If you want to hear God's voice for your healing, you have to get undistorted spiritual vision. So God doesn't correct from accusation. He reveals from humility, and he wants you to get in the place of humility. So I want you to shift the question from, why won't he change? To, God, what are you showing me about my heart in this? Now, this is not about self-blame. This is not about navel-gazing. This is about, what is the Holy Spirit revealing to you? Where have your expectations been unmet? Where is disappointment not been grieved? Where are you pointing fingers instead of examining yourself? And this is exactly why inside the Heal with God program, we don't start with behavior change. I know we want to change our behaviors. We want to get rid of all those nagging symptoms. But here's the deal. Those symptoms are pointing to deeper issues. And when we start to hear God clearly with heart clarity, man, hearing God accurately becomes regular, the norm. And I want that for you. I want you to hear God accurately. I want you to hear God's voice to heal. And I would love for you to join the Heal with God program, and I would walk with you in the 8-week program, hand in hand. You don't have to do it alone. All right, so point C is God heals perspective before your behavior. I know you want to heal that. I know you want those symptoms to change. Whatever those bad behaviors are, those outbursts of anger, those arguments that are never ending and just go in circles and don't really get anywhere. Well, listen, God often speaks to identity wounds, fear of abandonment, control, self-protection, before he's ever going to speak about your marriage dynamics. Why? Because healed perspective produces wiser responses. You want to have greater communication skills. You want to communicate better. I totally get that, and that's a good goal. But here's the deal. When perspective heals, communication changes. When your perspective heals, boundaries become clearer. When your perspective heals, peace is going to replace urgency. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay, when I say your perspective heals, I'm saying when you get the eyelash out of your eye, communication will change. When you get the eyelash out of your eye, boundaries are becoming clearer, and peace will replace the urgency. Healing doesn't always start with fixing the relationship. It often starts with healing the lens through which you are looking through. Okay? So how? Well, listening prayer is a great way to start this. Maybe you could try with this prayer prompt. Holy Spirit, what are you healing in me through this season? What are you hearing? Are you listening? So when God's quiet about changing your spouse, he might be speaking about strengthening you. All right, so let's do a little recap here. I gave you 3 points today. Disappointment can distort your spiritual hearing if it's not grieved. Number 2, blame blocks discernment and clarity. And number 3, God often heals perspective before behavior. So before asking, is he the problem? I want you to ask God, what are you showing me? And that question alone can change everything. Ask me how I know. I'm raising my hand over here. I'm not saying I have everything figured out, but one thing I know is that I have to deal with myself. I'm that powerful that I can pray. I can hear God's voice for myself, for what God is doing in my life. What is he healing in my life? Because as he heals me, he gives me compassion for others and empowers me to help others heal. You can't heal what's not healed within yourself. And oftentimes, if you're pointing blame, you're not quite healed, if I'm honest. I've given you several activations and prayer prompts today. I'm going to leave you with a prayer and a declaration. Are you ready? Okay, here's the prayer. God, you see my heart and my marriage. Help me hear you clearly, without accusation, without fear, without shame. Show me what you're healing in me so I can walk in truth and peace. And now here's the declaration for you. All right, you ready? I want you to say this out loud if you can. God, you said I hear your voice. I choose discernment over blame. I choose humility over accusation. And now insert your name. I'm going to do mine, but you do yours. Make this really personal, okay? Heather, you are listening, and you will follow truth with peace. How does that feel? I want you to try that today. You can hit rewind if you need to and try that out loud. If you've been praying, but you still feel stuck, if you're tired and you're overthinking and second guessing every decision, and if you want clarity without condemnation, I want to invite you to my free live prophetic healing workshop. It's held every 3rd Monday of the month. You could come quietly. You could come simply listen. You could be a fly on the wall. You can let God speak without any pressure or performance. Sometimes clarity doesn't come from trying harder. It comes from showing up and listening. So join the next workshop at heatherobrien.net/workshop. That's heatherobrien.net/workshop. I'd love to see you there. Whew, that was a whole word, wasn't it? Thanks for spending this time with me on Heal with God. Just a reminder, I'm a licensed minister, not a licensed therapist. So this is all about spiritual encouragement and prayer, not replacing your doctor's advice. And if you haven't already, I want you to go grab your spot for the next free live workshop at heatherobrien.net/workshop. I'll walk you through my 3-step spirit-led process to hear God and heal what's really going on. Until next time, I'm praying blessings and favor chase you down.